UFC 318 was a great pay-per-view card. Dustin didn't get his dream send-off. Paulo Costa once come shot. And as always, we're here to break down and recap the entire UFC 318 event, hitting you with them elbows of knowledge here on the Ground and Pound podcast, and kicking things off in the early prelim opener of Carli Judice getting the third round TKO victory here with the nice left knee to the body, right to the liver. And I got to say, man, I think Carli Judice, I got to take my hat off to this girl because she came into the UFC with very little experience. She's shown vast improvements, and she's now coming off back-to-back knockout wins, obviously with that head kick victory in her previous fight, now with the nice knee to the body. And she's just, her striking just looks fantastic, even though she's not got a lot of experience. She seems to walk these girls down and they feel her power. She mixes in things fantastic. She's got a ton of weapons on the feet, which she displayed last night. And I've been pretty impressed with her. I'm getting kind of on board this train here of Carli Judice. And one of the things that we got to remember here in some of the women's divisions is, you know, we see a lot of the women's fights go the distance. We don't tend to see a whole lot of finishes. But if some of these women, they rack up a couple of finishes back to back to back, they climb the rankings pretty quick, guys. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Carli Judice have a big step up in competition now with back-to-back finishes. Obviously, Dana blessing her with the 50K performance of the night bonus, and I don't blame her because, like I said, I think Carli deserves it here. Her opponent here in Caliari, she's a tough girl. She showed that. She obviously tried to mix in the takedowns, but had no success. Obviously, Judice was able to stuff most of those and keep this one on the feet, and she looks great on the feet. So I'd be interested to see who they match her up with next. 50K well earned, and this pretty much was the start of the prelims and how it was going to go on. Third round finish here for Carli Judice, getting that bonus victory. I was impressed, and sky's the limit for her. Obviously, somebody that's very green still in the sport, still very motivated to show that she's got a lot more in the tank and can still improve. So still very young, getting it done in front of her hometown crowd. And next up, we had Brunno Ferreira, the Hulk, getting the first round armbar submission. And I feel bad for Jackson a little bit here. I think that this was a big step up in competition for him. I'd like to see him maybe get somebody on his level a little bit more than Brunno Ferreira. Obviously, him stepping in on somewhat short notice to replace Ikram Askarov. But Brunno the Hulk Ferreira, man, back-to-back submission victories with the armbar in the previous fight, the armbar this time. And this one obviously being done in the first round. Brunno Ferreira obviously transitioning on the ground once he was able to get into side control. I've said it time and time again. If you don't know, with judokas, if they get into side control, they are very, very heavy on top. They have great arm bars in judo. And some of the time, you know, they can obviously fish for the Kimura. He chose the arm bar. The transition for the arm bar here was beautiful. And this one, Ferreira getting it done by first round submission. I did think that this was going to be probably a first round victory for Jackson. If he was going to win, it was going to be in the first round. Obviously, Carlos and I both picked Brunno Ferreira. I thought that it was going to be, you know, get Jackson into the second round and then maybe mix in some takedowns and ultimately find the finish there. But as long as it lasted, Brunno Ferreira getting this armbar and Jackson, you could see the pain on his face, pretty much screamed immediately, tapped immediately, and Brunno Ferreira getting another submission victory. So impressive win for him. I like to see him, you know, obviously fight somebody more on his level. Jackson, no disrespect to him, but obviously, UFC debut here. Big step up in competition, and maybe Hulk goes from just regular Hulk to world breaker Hulk here, and we see him go on a run. But great win for him here. And like I mentioned, the prelims were on fire with all these finishes. And speaking of finishes, man, Ryan Spann getting back to doing what he does. The first round arm triangle victory here. And one of the things I really noticed in this one is you can never be too confident in a Ryan Spann fight at this point in his career. Obviously, him moving up to heavyweight was a very questionable decision. And in his previous fight, he looked, you know, a little bit fat, a little bit disinterested, you know, a little bit chubby. He came in a little bit leaner. You could tell in this fight that he took this one serious. He wasn't necessarily in his own head, I guess, because he's talked about his anxiety previously in the past. And he looked good, came out, got the takedown early. He just came into this one. He looked like he knew exactly what he wanted to do. He came out, he did it, he got the job done, and was able to get that arm triangle. He got into mount. Obviously was looking to fish for, you know, ground and pound, soften him up with ground and pound first. Once Brzeski kind of presented that opportunity for him to set up the head and arm choke, he was able to take it, get off to the side, put that pressure down, and that was all she wrote. Brzeski here tapping, obviously, in the first round. It's good to see Superman get back in the win column. I think he was pretty emotional after getting that victory. He did not look good in his previous fight. So I think, like I've said in previous fights and previous breakdowns of Ryan Spann's, he has all the talent in the world. The guy is a great specimen in terms of 6'5". He can fight at heavyweight and light heavyweight. Great guillotine, which he did attempt at one point. I thought he was going to be able to finish him with the guillotine. He was able to transition. That's how he got into mount. But the guy's great. You know, he can strike on the feet. He can mix it up on the ground. He has great submissions. He just doesn't do very well when things don't go his way. I think he doubts himself, and he's a better hammer than he is a nail. But getting a win here against a 1-6 guy in the UFC doesn't necessarily tell us too much about Ryan Spann's moving trajectory now, moving forward. But I think that will do him the world of confidence here to be able to get back in the win column and get him back on track with that first round arm triangle. And next up, we had Jimmy Crute getting the first round armbar submission here. And this one was in our best bets. I had this one down as one of the props to watch out for. Jimmy Crute coming in plus, I believe it's plus 425 here for the first round submission. And he delivered for us here. One of our bets that did deliver for us this week. We're going to talk about that later on in the card. But I felt like Jimmy Crute had to come in here and grapple. I thought it just didn't make sense for him to stand on the feet with a wild man like Prachnio. Just to kind of mix it up on the feet here would be dangerous, especially seeing as he needs to get back in the win column. Crute is dangerous on the feet. He does have power. You could see he was able to land the right hand a few times. He's just very like sort of high guard and very stiff in the way that he kind of holds his hands up. He's not necessarily as fluid especially as a guy like Prachnio or some of the other guys in this division. But I was happy he came in and mixed the wrestling in. He was able to get the takedown early. He took, I think it was like three takedown attempts, and he got into some dangerous positions on the ground and wasn't able to finish the fight. I think he just rushed the position a little bit. Prachnio was pretty much fighting for his life, scrambling very well. And this was a tough one to watch. I'm surprised Prachnio's arm didn't break. I was kind of expecting it to. He refused to tap. There was a few transitions here where Jimmy Crute was really trying to yank on that arm bar, really extend the hips to really hyperextend the elbow here. He had to put the arm off to the side just to kind of create a little bit more torque in the pull here for the arm bar. I was surprised that the arm didn't break. Obviously, Prachnio ended up tapping. We got that first round submission victory here for Jimmy Crute. He gets back in the win column. The guy's talented, man, but still only, I believe he's 29 as well, so or maybe not even 27. I'm not 100% sure. I want to say 29. Still, guys, still very, very young, especially at higher weight classes. Would be interesting to see what he does moving forward now that he's back in the win column. And obviously, coming off that retirement, we thought it might be the last time we see him, but came in here, did exactly what he's supposed to do, fought smart, and had a little moment with Theo Vaughn afterwards. The mullets got together there outside the octagon. That was probably a little bit more impressive than Prachnio's takedown defense. But hats off to him, cashing for us for the best bets this week. And Prachnio, man, got to work on that ground game, brother, but it's probably a little bit too old, a little bit too late for you now at 37. But Jimmy Crute getting it done for us. And next up, we had another performance of the night bonus here in Islam Dulatov. This guy has it all, man. Like, this guy, Vogue model, the guy is already, they were talking about how he's already got 2 Lamborghinis from his modeling career. He comes in, he's making chump change, knocking out Adam Fugitt inside the first. And, again, fast hand speed, man. This guy, he can crack. His hand speed is very impressive, straight shots down the pipe. And you could see in there that he was just getting comfortable. It was sort of later on in the first where he was able to find the finish here. And I think that this was kind of the writing on the wall for Adam Fugitt. The speed discrepancy between these two was very, very noticeable on tape for tape study. I felt good about Islam this week, getting it done here by knockout. And to me, when you look at this fight overall and you kind of see, he kind of took his time. He was a little bit more measured than what he was in his Contender Series fight here. And once I think Fugitt hit him with something, he kind of was a bit like, okay, I'm taking what you're giving, it's fine. And he kind of put the pressure on and ultimately knew that he was going to find the finish here. The guy is, obviously a great striker. Obviously, the sky's the limit for this guy. Obviously, a war-torn country that he's come from. The guy is tough. The guy is very, very durable from what you can see on the regional scene as well. And he likes to get the finish, and that's exactly what he did here with a 50K performance of the night bonus. Hats off to him for getting it done. And this one, to me, was pretty much just a showcase bout. I think a lot of people knew that. But hats off to Islam Dulatov, man. The guy's got a great modeling career. He's going to be going back to his modeling job sometime next week. I think he said he's got to shoot next week, and not with a scar on his whole entire face. So getting it done early is obviously going to be the best path for him to keep that modeling career going, but 50K also in the bank for getting this first round finish. And next up, we had Gautier, and this guy's impressive, man. I really like this guy. If this guy can keep fights on the feet, he's so dangerous. And I love the fact that he has so much power and he comes out so measured like he did here against Valentin. And he landed a nice knee up the middle when Valentin went in to shoot. He timed a knee perfectly. And the skill of this guy to not just be a wild man, I think that's what really is impressive about this guy. You see a lot of guys with power. For example, Francis Ngannou, when you remember that fight against Biggie Boy, Jairzinho Rosenstripe, he just swings wild, comes at you, and just hopes to land. There's nothing technical about it. He just knows if I land once, that's going to be all she wrote. Same with Derek Lewis at times, but this guy's so measured on the feet, so calculated, which you don't tend to see from guys who have this kind of power. But a well-deserved 50K bonus here for Ateba Gautier, and I'm excited to see what this guy has, man. If he can keep fights on the feet, he can knock anybody out. Physical specimen. We haven't seen him go longer in fights because people can't stand his power, and he mixes in his weapons well. It's not just a big overhand or, just one jab and a right hand or a 1-2. He's mixing everything in: knees, elbows, uppercuts. He goes to the body, he comes upstairs. The guy's very, very impressive, man. 50K bonus, well deserved here. I did think that this was going to be kind of an obvious, first round finish here by knockout against a guy like Valentin. I thought Valentin was going to obviously try to mix in the wrestling, but pretty much from the jump, he got tagged. He felt that power. He didn't like it. Good stoppage here from Herb Dean. I think that this fight was pretty much writing on the wall here for Gautier to get in the win column and find that 50K bonus in the first round. And pretty much exactly how we predicted it here on the Ground and Pound podcast. And next up, we talked about how we predicted the last couple of fights. Well, this one didn't go our way at all. We had Nikolay Veretennikov. That's a pretty tough name to pronounce, but he was able to get it done here against Prado. And I think Prado really sold himself short in moments of this fight. I didn't disagree with the decision. I did think that Nikolay obviously winning by split decision, I thought that was the right decision, even though I did pick Prado. The thing I was kind of disappointed here with Prado was, from my pick perspective here, was he had moments where he did decide to mix in the grappling, which is exactly what I said in the best bets. Plus 850 for a submission victory here for Prado. I thought there was a lot of value on the prop line there for that. I know that I was talking to one of our guys in the comments here. I forget his name. I do apologize. But we talked about, obviously him being 23 years old. Is he actually going to be the real deal? And, how impressive is he? I don't necessarily think that Prado was all that, but I also didn't think that Nikolay is also all that either. I thought maybe the move over to American Top Team might do him some justice. He might make some big improvements from fight to fight. He came in and did exactly what I thought he was going to do and mix in the takedowns, which he did. And he had moments where, he had an opportunity to get the Von flu at times because Nikolay wouldn't let go of the guillotine and let go of the head. He had also other moments where he was trying to set up the arm triangle, but Nikolay did a good job of being able to scramble out of those positions and fight those positions. And I thought we were going to cash on that one with the inside the distance there with the prop section of our best bets and even that little sprinkle that we had or we talked about with the submission prop. But hats off to Nikolay, man. He used his long range weapons when they were on the feet. I think the reach and the overall experience here that Nikolay had really served him well, especially his time over at King's MMA training with some high level guys. You could see that he was fighting a good game plan. I think his cardio lasted and did a good job of being able to withstand all of the pressure and the takedowns that Prado had. It was very back and forth. Both guys had their moments. I just think that Nikolay was able to land the bigger shots and have the bigger moments, and I think Prado just didn't really take advantage of the grappling situations there. I think if he would have sort of not gone for the finish and not gone for the submission really and just kept the position, he could have won this fight a little bit easier, just with top control, beating him up with ground and pound and staying a little bit safer. Obviously, we wanted him to get the finish for our best bets. I thought there was value in that, but obviously him not getting it done, it was a tail of the tape for pretty much how the rest of this fight card went for our bets. Unfortunately, we just came up a little bit short in a few parlays of one leg, but Nikolay getting it done and him getting his first UFC victory as well. So hats off to him getting it done against a youngster up and comer. And next up, we had the fight of the night, and obviously Marvin Vettori, our dog of the week, wasn't able to get it done. I think that this one played out very much a back and forth striking exchange, technical striking exchange on the feet, both guys trading in the pocket, both guys having moments. Brandon Allen, every time he landed, he pointed at him. Every time Vettori landed, he yapped back at him. Both these guys, obviously, as I said, had bad blood coming into this fight, and it showed in this one. They both wanted to trade in the pocket. Brandon Allen mixed in the wrestling early. Vettori was able to get back on top and reverse position, land some good ground and pound, and pretty much after that first round, they said screw the grappling, and they went right back to throwing hands. And I gotta say, man, Brandon Allen's hands looked good in this one. I know Vettori's known for his chin, and he shows it off in every single fight, but Brandon Allen was able to touch that chin on multiple occasions. Every time Vettori would start to get some momentum and land a few shots, Brandon Allen would pop him back with an even bigger shot. He mixed in the kicks very well, went to the calf very nicely. He would have a very nice counter game in this one. Both guys kind of slipping and ripping and trying to find that counter shot. Obviously, Vettori, that's pretty much his game overall, and lighting up that calf kick, but he wasn't able to get as much of his striking going as I would like to have seen against Brandon Allen. Allen's striking looked a lot more impressive than I remember it to be, especially on tape study. Hats off to him for getting it done, man, and fight of the night definitely well deserved. Both guys didn't take a backward step pretty much the whole fight. Pretty much, a high volume, high paced fight the whole entire time. At times you thought that Vettori might get finished, which we've never seen. Obviously at moments as well where Allen was getting clocked, you're thinking, damn, how is this guy taking this? And pretty much a great fight. I don't disagree that this was the fight of the night. I could argue that maybe the fight later on between Kevin Holland and Daniel Rodriguez maybe deserved fight of the night, but this was a great one. Obviously, dog of the week got murdered in this one, but Brandon Allen, I don't necessarily agree with the 29-28. I think it was probably 30-27 for Allen here. I did agree with the two judges that gave it to 30-27 to Allen. He just landed the bigger shots. Both guys landed high volume, but those impactful shots of Allen were what really stood out. Hats off to him. We'll get one back. And I'm surprised Vettori didn't get this one. I thought he was going to be able to bully Brandon Allen, mix in his own wrestling. He was going to be inspired after his brother passing away, unfortunately, in his training camp here. But obviously, sometimes that can be a distraction and a hindrance. But hats off to Allen, man, for getting it done. Not salty at all. It was a great fight. Good performance from both guys. And next up, we have Vinicius Oliveira. This one pretty much was down to a T exactly how we saw this one go. And Vinicius Oliveira, using his Muay Thai style, pretty much just walking down Kyler Phillips and pretty much just wore him down. And this was a tale of the classic strategy of one guy likes to bounce around on the outside and he's constantly backpedaling. That guy will always get tired. They always say it's much harder to train or to fight moving backwards on the back foot. And that's pretty much what Vinicius Oliveira likes to do. He pressures forward very heavily. Kyler Phillips likes to dance around on the outside, and Kyler Phillips won the first round, no doubt about that. He landed, I think it was something like 10 or 11 more significant strikes. Obviously being able to sort of implement his counter striking game. Obviously his hand speed was there, but once he started to get tired, Vinicius was throwing everything into every single shot. And even the commentary team was saying, he really loads up on every single shot that he has, and you see it coming. It's just hard because he's constantly on the gas. So you find it hard to be able to move out of the way of some of the shots because you are so tired and you are always fighting on the back foot. So Vinicius was our first leg of our slam of the week. Obviously, that's been on a huge run here on the Ground and Pound podcast. That was supposed to hit it's hit 7 of our last 8, looking to make it 8 of our last 9. Unfortunately, Kevin Holland didn't get it done for us. We'll talk about that fight later on, but Vinicius did exactly what he was supposed to do, walked Kyler Phillips down, was able to light up that calf kick, land some big bombs. He did hurt Kyler Phillips multiple times in the last 2 rounds. And hats off to him getting his hand raised, getting another win here. And I'd like to see who he fights next. I mean, obviously him now in the rankings, see who he gets next. And I think he's a problem. I think a counter striker who's a little bit more technical, somebody, I'm trying to think who they've got here, but somebody who can really just sort of take advantage of Vinicius's wild style with his hands down is going to give him problems. But obviously Kyler Phillips wasn't able to do that, and he did get tired, obviously, from dancing around on the outside. So hats off, Vinicius. You did your part. We'll be back. And next up, I can't believe this one. This one really, really surprised me. I'm surprised Daniel Zellhuber lost this one to Michael Johnson. obviously Michael Johnson, obviously a UFC veteran. He was, 30-fight veteran inside the UFC. Did what he was supposed to do. Hats off to him. The guy's got a lot of experience. But I felt like Zellhuber just fought a little bit too safe. I feel like he should have really just made this one a little bit more of a dogfight. He did get tagged early in this one. Johnson was able to land a nice overhand left, which dropped Daniel Zellhuber. Zellhuber obviously taking advantage of the kicks, blasting the kicks to the lead hand, blasting the kicks to the head. But ultimately, Johnson's footwork and his ability to get inside boxing range was where this fight took place. That took away the weapons a little bit of Daniel Zellhuber. When they were out at range, he was blasting kicks, but once he corralled and got into that boxing range, I think the hands of Johnson were much better, much slicker, much more effective here against a guy like Zellhuber, who likes to do his best work at range with kicks, and it showed in this fight. And Carlos has said to me many times, when you get a kickboxer, sometimes these guys have great kicks, but that the hands can get exposed. You see that with Izzy against, who's the French guy? You know who I'm talking about, the guy that recently knocked him out. The name's not coming to my head right now. But even in that fight, you could see that the hands of the kickboxer is not necessarily there in comparison to some of the kicks and some of the footwork. And I felt like Zellhuber here struggled once this fight was in boxing range. And a big underdog, and that was pretty much the trend of what the main card was going to be. All the underdogs pretty much cast, apart from Max Holloway, as this fight card continued. And he was the biggest betting underdog on the card. I don't think a lot of people picked Michael Johnson. I thought a lot of people thought that Zellhuber was going to be able to find the chin. And they even said Johnson's known as a chinny fighter as well. Previously, his past performances, he's been getting chinned by a lot of guys. I thought Zellhuber here was going to have the striking to be able to counter or at least land a head kick of some sort here. But hats off to Johnson, man. Great fight. Getting back in the win column for an old veteran. And maybe he's not chinny. Maybe this guy is going to make a title run. I'm just kidding. There's no chance he's making a fucking title run. And next up, we have Patricio Pitbull getting his first UFC victory here against Dan Ige. This fight was kind of a little bit of a boring one up until the sequence where Pitbull was able to land on Dan Ige. He was able to hurt Dan Ige. We don't see Dan Ige hurt very often. Obviously, Ige, 50K Ige, has never been finished inside his professional career. Still, obviously, he wasn't able to get the finish here, but he did have Dan Ige hurt. He was really having to dig deep. I'm not sure exactly what shot it was that Pitbull landed, but he swarmed him. The commentary team were talking about how when Pitbull smells blood, he will throw a lot more volume to try to get his opponent out of there. He did a good job of lighting up the calf of Dan Ige, like we talked about on our full card breakdown of this fight. And I just felt like this fight was pretty much a tale of, not a lot happened until Pitbull was able to land that big shot, which obviously hurt Ige, and there was pretty much like a minute and a half of just him walking down Ige, swinging at him, giving him everything he had, ripping to the body, lighting up his legs, throwing the shovel uppercut that you can see on your screen here. But hats off to Pitbull, man. I'm not a huge Pitbull fan. I do think that he's not going to have a whole lot of success inside the UFC. These Bellator guys don't come over and do too well in the big leagues of the UFC, but obviously, he was able to get past Dan Ige here with the unanimous decision victory. I do think Dan Ige kind of let this one slide a little bit. I would like to see him pressure early, really kind of come out aggressive, especially in the first round as the younger, guy with maybe a little bit more power. But he tended to, kind of play the game of Pitbull here with the low volume striking technical match here, and ultimately paid the price with the second round when he did get hurt, and that gave Pitbull the round and gave him ultimately confidence. So hats off to Pitbull for getting the victory here, but unfortunately Dan Ige wasn't able to get it done for us here. And another underdog cashing on the main card here. Tail of the dogs were out, man. Who let the dogs out? And next up, Kevin, the Trailblazer Holland, my friend. This one was a back and forth striking affair. Daniel Rodriguez getting the decision. I agreed with the decision. No hate from me here. I felt like what really cost Kevin Holland in this fight was the fact that at the end of this third round, you could argue that he maybe made a case for a 10-8, dropped Daniel Rodriguez multiple times in the third. If you argue the case that Daniel Rodriguez won the first and the second, obviously the first being very close, very back and forth, the kicks of Holland in the first compared to the boxing of Daniel Rodriguez, kind of left that one to be in the hands of the judges. The second round, Rodriguez definitely won that one and had Kevin Holland hurt multiple times. And Kevin Holland just wouldn't be denied. He showed a lot of toughness in this fight. Both guys did, to be able to withstand the moments of their opponent, almost finishing each other. And I think the real tale of this one was when Rodriguez was hurt. he was able to kind of try to mix in the grappling. Kevin was obviously going in for the finish, a little bit overzealous, and I think he just had a low fight IQ moment here where he went to his back to try to get a triangle, and ultimately that cost him. Rodriguez was able to play out that last minute and a half on the top of Kevin Holland and just landing ground and pound, which I think ultimately won him that third round, or at least made it a 10-9 for Holland. But depending on how you scored it, that ultimately gave Rodriguez the victory here in my eyes. I think if Kevin didn't resort to, kind of go into the jiu-jitsu here, trying to pull off the late submission, I think he maybe would have at least maybe got a draw with a 10-8 round, depending on how you scored those first two. I didn't look to see how the judges scored the first round, but ultimately I think the thing that really cost him here, with either getting the victory or the draw, was the last second fight IQ here to go for the triangle. But great fight. I think this one, to be honest, this was my favorite fight on the whole card, even though Kevin Holland was our second leg and our slam of the week, which is hit at a great rate. Obviously, we'll get back in the win column. I'm not worried about that. That play is almost hitting at about 80% at this point. And Kevin Holland obviously didn't come through for us. I just felt like he was going to have a lot more success on the feet than what he did. We've seen in previous fights with Kevin Holland, he's been yapping and talking a lot of shit in there just to kind of hype himself up. We didn't see that from Holland. He seemed a little bit more focused in there. And Rodriguez, man, showing a lot of toughness. No disrespect to him. Getting it done here. Both guys hurt each other. Great fight. Very impressed. Deserved to be on the main card. And I think both of these guys needed to be paid a little bit more for the fans. They definitely enjoyed this one as long as it lasted. Unlucky Kevin. Get back in the win column in your next one. And that brings us to the co-main event. And if you're enjoying the content here on the Ground and Pound podcast, hit that like and subscribe button as Paulo Costa, the eraser Paulo Costa, shows up for us. And Carlos, he texted me a little bit before I did the recap video here, and he even said, who would have thought that Paulo Costa, the old Paulo Costa, would have showed up after 4 years of just nothing. It didn't look like the same Paulo Costa. He looked good on there, light on the feet, much more aggressive, walking down his opponent. And he kind of, I'm not going to say he looked like the Yoel Romero fight, because I think that it was a little bit less aggressive than that fight. That was pretty much just a back and forth brawl. But he looked good in there. He looked a little bit like the old Paulo Costa, which we like to see, that come forward pressure, ripping the big kicks to the body, landing the boxing exchanges, and did a good job of being able to really get the timing of Kopylov. And Kopylov, one thing we got to talk about him is what the fuck were their corner talking about? Some of the worst cornering I've seen or heard of in a long time, telling him that he's doing a good job after blowing the first round. It could be 1-1 while he's getting his ass whooped by Paulo Costa. I didn't understand that one at all. That made no sense. I think that corner needs to be investigated. I think they did their man injustice in that. I don't understand that at all. But hats off to Paulo Costa, man, getting back in the win column, doing what he was supposed to do. Both guys 34 years old, so it's not like, we're expecting this huge title run from them, but maybe Costa's got one in him to be somebody that can fight, on a couple more main cards, maybe even get a title shot later on if he can string some wins together. But Kopylov, man, I think you got to talk to your corner, man. They weren't giving you solid advice at all. I don't know what that was all about, but one of the things that made me laugh is Paulo Costa's broken up English is so funny. If you've never seen any of Paulo Costa's Instagram or any of his, his tweets or anything like that, the guy is very, very funny with some of the stuff that he talks about online. Love the guy's antics outside of the cage. And he talked about the disrespect that Khamzat Chimaev had for him DMing his wife, and he wasn't happy about that. He wants cum shot, man. He wants Khamzat Chimaev. Obviously, he wants to be able to get some revenge for your wife is in me DMs scenario that's playing out here. Hats off to Costa, man, getting back in the win column. We'll see if he gets what he wants here, but obviously Khamzat, I think that's a smart call out if he's able to run through DDP in a few weeks' time. You never know. Paulo Costa, one win away. Maybe he gets his grudge match here against Cum Shot. And that brings us to the main event of the evening. And obviously, Max Blessed Holloway, the BMF champion, keeping his belt, doing what he's supposed to do, providing the upset here, getting his revenge for the previous two fights here that he lost against Dustin Poirier, getting back in the win column after losing to that knockout loss to Ilia Topuria. And Max looked great. I think he looks great at 155. The hand speed is still there, but he has that little bit more pop. His timing, even like DC was saying in the commentary that when he lets his combinations go, he lands 3, 4, 5 punch combos, and the first 2, 3 they kind of come off the guard of his opponent, but 3, 4, 5 they rip, man. He really has power at 155. He looks good, and obviously providing the upset here against Dustin the Diamond Poirier. Retirement fight. Hats off to Dustin, one of the one of the guys who, if you're a UFC fan and you've been around for a while, you know Dustin is one of the guys that you're going to be sad to see leave the sport. That's obviously why they made this event, pretty much to be able to give Dustin the send-off that he wants. And one of the things I do want to talk about here on this one is obviously a great fight. Both guys having their moments, especially early in this one. Max obviously getting the victory here by unanimous decision. I don't think there was any doubt that Holloway definitely won this one. And both guys pointing to the center of the octagon like Max has been doing here for the BMF sort of streak that he's been doing. Last round, points to the ground with 10 seconds left, and both guys trading off. Max getting the better of that exchange. But one of the things I want to talk about with Dustin here is that we see guys, Tony Ferguson, maybe even Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, some of these guys who they go longer in their career and maybe they should have retired 3 fights ago. They get beaten up. The UFC uses their name against some of the young and up-and-comers. Obviously, if they need the money, they want the money for the fights, and they're happy to go in there against these young killers. That's fair enough. But Dustin was talking about, I didn't want a layup. I didn't want an easy fight. I wanted the best. Max, obviously, the best is blessed, and he is one of the best right now, obviously holding that BMF belt. But he didn't want to lay up. He wanted to obviously fight in his home state here of Louisiana, Lafayette, Louisiana, in New Orleans, Louisiana, excuse me. And, he did them proud, man. I think Dustin's a great, obviously he was a great interim champion. He was a great fighter, put on a lot of great performances. The famous knockout that he had against Conor McGregor is, for a lot of the casuals, was a big surprise. I don't think that was a big surprise for a lot of hardcore fans, but the guy's a legend, man. Obviously, great skills on the ground. They talk a lot about what he does for the Good Fight Foundation as well, what he does outside of the cage. A great company man as well. He's never really in a boring fight, let's be honest. The guy's always in a brawl or an exchange. Guy shows a lot of toughness, and I'm happy that he wants to go out this way. He doesn't want to just, kind of do what's happening with guys like Tony Ferguson, where they're just getting ran through, and it's hard for people like the hardcore fans to watch. But he's obviously got his Good Fight Foundation. I'm sure that if there's a fight and he gets the hunger in his belly to come back and fight, I'm sure that he will. I'm sure the UFC will welcome him back. But hats off to him, man. Seems like a great guy. I don't really know Dustin too well. A lot of people say that, his persona is fake, and some people say that he's a great guy. He seems like a great guy. He puts on great performances, so that's all I need. That's all I really care about. And Max getting it done for us is one of the only favorites, or the only favorite here on the main card. And that's all we got time for here on the recap here for UFC 318. And before I wrap things up, I got to let you guys know what's coming this week on the channel. We've got the dog of the week, my favorite betting underdog for this upcoming UFC fight night here, Robert Whittaker. And I got to be honest, man, I'm surprised that they're doing this right now with Reinier de Ridder. He's taking on Robert Whittaker in the main event. That's the dog of the week. My favorite betting underdog for that card will be there. Full highlight reel tape coming to you this week. And obviously, as I mentioned, the full card breakdown Carlos and I do every week. Robert Whittaker, Reinier de Ridder in the main event. And we'll see how that one plays out. It's a pretty stacked card there. That should be a good event. And as always, if you're enjoying the content here on the Ground and Pound podcast, you know what you got to do. Hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.